Drove down early this morning from that massive city to the north, Springfield, Missouri. And what a nice community you have. Yep. I'm a photographer, and even more specifically, I'm a storyteller, so I'm going to tell you my story today. But as I tell my story today, I want you to think about your story. When's the last time you thought about your story? So as I'm talking about mine, think about yours. But ultimately, at the end of all of this, I want you to realize it's not my story. It's not your story. It's God's story. But God has that story for a reason. If you put it in a closet, if you put it in a little box, it's not going to do anybody any good. That journey of life you've went down is there for a reason. We have to do something with it. For a fact, when you think of the Bible and all the great things that's in the Bible, they're almost all stories. And what's really cool about it is the stories don't come generally from people that came from an incredible background with incredible abilities. For the most part, it's just people like you and me, just normal people. But yet God does great things through normal people. You know, one of my favorite scriptures, and it's like a hall of famer, Jeremiah 29:10, Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord, plans to prosper you, not harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. And I love that because it's like, oh my goodness gracious sakes alive, he's talking to me. He's talking to you. Now, there's one thing wrong with this, and this relates to my story, and one thing I want you to grab from my story. Okay, he's got this great, God's like, I'm going to do great things through you. I don't want to hurt you. I want to give you dreams beyond your wildest dreams. Just come to me with everything you have in love. Reach for me. But there's one thing that falls apart. He doesn't send us a text. He doesn't send us an email. The thing he does, he speaks through this. Sometimes it's pretty clear. Most of the time, it's kind of like heartburn. It's this little thing that just kind of burns there, and it's like, what does this mean? What does this mean? So we don't know his plans, but his plans are good. My journey as a photographer started at the ripe, young age of 15. I hate to even say that, but that was 42 years ago. Look at the excitement in your face. You're like, how can that possibly be? He looks so young. But when I got that camera, my life literally changed. I have to admit, it was a great way to get dates. And it was fun. But very quickly on, I knew it's like, wait a minute. My heart's telling me there's more with this thing called the camera in my life than just a little thing to do. I started taking photos, and I started realizing it's a voice. And I photographed sunsets, I photographed mountains, water, creeks, lakes, on and on and on. That was all great and glorious, but then something happened real quick on. That is, I fell in love with you. I fell in love with people because I started seeing that my art centers around you and the fact of this. Okay, I'm going to give you a test. You walked in church today, and of course, you maybe did things before you came, but you crossed paths with people. Now, when you looked at another person today, how many of you looked at another person and said, goodness sakes, gracious alive, that's a one-of-a-kind miracle never before been created? Wow, I am dazzled. How many of you did that? No, we didn't. But shame on us. 7.6 billion people in the world, every single one is a one-of-a-kind work of art. That drove my artwork. Every time I do a photo shoot, I've never done it before, basically. Never. Now, this test is going to go to another level, and I bet you will fail. I'm so negative. Okay, it looks like everybody got dressed today. So that means that as you're getting dressed and you're combing your hair, well, no, I didn't comb mine, but you're combing your hair and you're maybe putting makeup on and this and that. How many of you looked into a mirror? Okay, I bet all of you. You looked into the mirror and what did you see? Yourself. Now, how many looked at yourself and said, I'm dazzled? Again, actually, double shame on us. I truly believe our Father wants us to look at each other. He wants us to look at ourselves and be in awe for the miracle that it is. No hair or hair does not matter. My career began much after high school, much after college. I went into the corporate world, but I talked about that heartburn, that little voice. It never would leave. Never, ever would leave. Kept saying, Randy, this is not your purpose. You have to keep following. You have to keep following. I kept photographing pretty much 100% people. But I was just doing it for this and that and this. And I started doing it professionally a little bit. And it kept going and going and going. And finally, I'm like, I have to take the big leap of faith. Think about your story. Does God want you to take a big leap of faith? For me, I finally got to the point I did. I left the corporate world. I was like number 3 in a $20 million company. Great benefits, great salary, on and on and on. But I'm like, I have to do this because I'm tired of this heartburn, and I know I'm supposed to follow it, to do something, and I didn't know exactly what, but I felt it had to do with photography. And so I left the corporate world, and I went to go full-time as a photographer, and this has been a few decades back, and my life has never been the same. It's pretty much like riding a roller coaster at Silver Dollar City. Most of the time, I don't want to throw up afterwards, but it's just as exciting. And again, my entire thing is I just love people, and I love the fact that everybody's different. I didn't really understand what this all meant. But I was walking, this has been a few months back, and somebody had this really cool shirt. It's by a big artist named Vincent van Gogh. Okay? And, like today's shirts have these words, and sometimes they actually are good. And this one said, there's nothing more truly artistic than to love people. And I'm like, that's kind of what I'm doing in a way. I just love to love people, and I love to use what I've been given as far as my gifts and to run with it. As I got into my career deeper and deeper, I realized there's a power. There's a power with stuff like this. That people connect with people. That we have a need for other people. And so as my career advanced and kept photographing more and more people, a lot of more high school seniors, family portraits, weddings, on and on and on, I knew my mission was even more different. And that is, I had to do something to use this to impact you, to impact communities, to impact this nation, and to impact the world some way. And I say this to you, and I'm like, this is awesome because I'm just this guy from Lebanon, Missouri, a town pretty much like Harrison, 12,000 people. I didn't grow up in a rich family. I wasn't necessarily gifted in ways growing up, anything, a life of silver spoons. But yet, God's like, I want to use you, Randy. I know the plans I have for you, but you got to follow this. So as I went through in my career and I started doing more and more projects that centered on People and their stories. Very, very simple. People and their stories. Very simple. We don't think about it much. But then I started realizing it's like, goodness sakes, there's a whole bunch of heroes in this world. Whole bunch. I asked you when you looked in the mirror today, did you say the words dazzled? Nobody said yes. How many of you looked in the mirror today and said, I'm a hero? Each and every one of us is an unlikely hero. We are a hero to somebody. You may find out who that somebody is, and you may not. But you are a hero to somebody. So as I started sharing the stories with portraits, and I saw the impact that was having in this world, about 6 years ago, I said, backstep that. I felt in here that God was saying to me that you need to ramp it up, Randy. You've seen what this photography can do. You've seen what these stories can do. Such a simple thing, but the power that it has. And so I decided to follow that little voice and launch a movement. A very simple thing, a story movement. Visual, portraits, films, stories, with the idea that it can be a tool to show God's love for this world. That He wants to use each of us in a dazzling way to show that we all are a hero with the story that we have. If we keep that story in a box, it's not going to do any good. So with 7 billion ones, the name comes from not dollars, not $7 billion. There's 7.5, 7.6 billion people in the world. We get lost in the bigness. It's so fast and it's so complicated. We're getting all these messages coming from every which way possible. But the whole idea is like, people, we just need to focus on the ones. We need to focus on each of us. I'm checking my time. Because when I get going, I could literally be here till 4 p.m. But we need to focus on the ones. That's ourselves and also others. So we launched in April. Actually, that's coming up pretty quick. April 7th, 2015 was our official launch date. And the whole idea behind this movement is I just want to give a voice to you. I want to give a voice to the voiceless. I want to use stories to empower people, to empower mankind. And I also want to punch you in the heart in a really good way and set your heart on fire with compassion. God wants us to love and take care of others. This really never has been done before. When I got into this, I thought, well, I can use this or that as an example of how to build this movement. It's never been done before in exactly the way we're doing it. So we're kind of doing it from the, just as we go, how do we do this? And we learn and we learn and we learn. But what we're finding out is it works. Photos, story can impact the world. We use this crazy thing called social media. That's one of our main outlets to the world. And social media is used for so much. It's like, okay, why am I wasting my time on social media? Why am I wasting my time on the internet? I don't want to see another plate of food on Instagram. But I saw that there's a power in it. Think about it. Through the internet, you can impact people worldwide from the comfort of our house to homes around the world, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. At any given point, you can reach people with something that's going to help people in some way, and it does. We learned real quick, though, because for example, Facebook, there are multiple billions of posts every single day. Every single day. Learned real quick, it's like, how are we going to reach the people? Because you're going through the feed, you're going through all the internet websites. How can I stop them? Another test. What's the attention span of a human? No, it's not 5 minutes, not a minute. How much? You're getting closer. It's getting shorter and shorter and shorter. They say now it's less than a goldfish. 7 seconds. What that means, if you don't catch somebody in 7 seconds, they move on to the next best thing. Now, that's wrong when you go to the internet. When you go to the internet, 3 seconds. 3 seconds. So with this movement, we learned real quick that we have to catch somebody's attention. If we're going to use this power of the worldwide internet, we have to get their attention in 3 seconds. So we decided real quick the way to do that is we have to knock people out of their shoes with you. You as you are. Unfiltered. Raw, real, authentic. People crave authenticity more than ever, I believe. We crave truth because we're fed so much that is not. So when you go to 7billionones.org, that's where we house all these stories. And by the way, we're up to well over 500. Every story you read comes from you. Not me, not one of the people that's on the team. We want it to be as authentic and real and about people as possible. We tell people, this is your story. Don't bring it from here. Bring it from here. Let those words flow from here because that's where God ultimately works, through your heart. $7 billion ones. We've captured over 500 stories, and we're not slowing down at all. Through this journey, it's required a lot of me. It's required a lot of our team. We keep pushing ahead. But I remember when I was in Plains, Montana, and this pastor in Plains, Montana said it so exactly correct. So we're pushing ahead with this movement, 7 billion ones, and it's awesome, it's fun, it's rewarding, but it's exhausting. It's required a lot of us. It's been a big financial hit to my commercial business, on and on and on. And the pastor said it so correctly. And I did a video of this pastor. His name is Pastor Jim, and he just passed away last year. And he said, compassion is always inconvenient. There's never the right time to be compassionate. Never. But I will tell you this, when you do acts of compassion, you feel more alive than you've ever felt. With all the inconvenience that there is, that's what keeps us going. And I read a statistic, and this was from a governmental agency, and this is from 2015, 2016, and it did a study on how many people do at least one single compassionate act in a given year. Just one. Even one. And they said 24.9%. Now, when I first heard that, I thought, hey, that's awesome. 24.9% of the people do a compassionate act. But then I'm like, no, that's terrible. That means over 75% don't do one single compassionate act in a given year. That's wrong. We have to do something. What keeps us going, even though it's so inconvenient? It's you. I love people. Every time we post a story, and again, we're over 500. Every time we post a story, I just love seeing how this connects the world. We may post a story from somebody in Springfield, Missouri, and it connects with somebody in Tanzania. Literally, this happens. And then we start getting feedback, and people start connecting. And it makes me think, you know, as a photographer, I've had the unbelievable roller coaster journey that has taken me to most parts of this world. Different parts of Africa, what was Soviet Union, Central America, India, on and on and on. And it's very easy in this world of 7.6 billion to look at all the different cultures, all the different places, and the way that their life may be different, and we agree with this and we don't agree with that, and on and on and on. But I can tell you this from my experience, whether I'm traveling from Springfield to Harrison or Springfield to Cairo, Egypt. And that is, we're all really pretty much the same. We're all made from the same Creator. We may have differences of income and culture, and maybe they even practice a different religion. But at the end of the day, our Father made us. He made us. And what I found is this. Back to Cairo, Egypt. When I went there, I literally filmed in the middle of the freedom protest on Tahrir Square, surrounded by thousands pleading for their freedom and life in Cairo. I've never felt more loved. And that's what it comes down to. We all want to be loved. We all want to give love. We want to have a future. We want to have dreams that come true. We want to have family and friends. That doesn't matter where you're from. It's all the same. That's why these stories can connect with 7.6 billion people. You can tell your story right here in Harrison, and it could literally change somebody's life in Cairo, Egypt. Isn't that awesome? I mean, when I say this, it's like, holy smokes. Whew. So 7 billion ones, what the roller coaster ride it's been. Oh my goodness sakes alive, besides all the stories, we now are finding out that this movement, these stories are being used by psychologists. They're being used in high schools, middle schools. They're being used in even elementary schools as a way to teach and learn. Here you've got this kid that came from Lebanon, Missouri, and I was so darn shy. I was so shy growing up, but look at me now, and it's like, if anything else from this talk, it's like, well, he's this pretty goofy guy from Lebanon, Missouri that was really shy, but look what God's doing through him. So I'm doing all kinds of speaking engagements, which just blows my mind. Actually, I love this. I just got back from Vienna, Austria. Vienna, Austria. Guess what they wanted me to do? A $50 billion pharmaceutical company took me there to talk about you, about the importance of each one of us and our story and how that can impact the world. This goofy guy from Lebanon. I'm finding that a lot of organizations now, they want to partner with us. They want to partner with us because they believe in what we're doing, but also they need a voice. They need a voice, somebody to speak for the people they're trying to help. And so you have organizations like Gathering Friends for the Homeless, and they're like, nobody recognized our homeless friends. And so we did a large project with them that featured the stories and lives of the homeless. We just finished a project which was one of the emotionally difficult projects I've ever worked on, but needs to be talked about, and it's a very difficult topic to talk about, and we all have our thoughts about it, but that is suicide. With the National Alliance on Mental Illness, they wanted us to feature stories and portraits on people that have lost someone to suicide or that they're dealing with it personally themselves with mental illness. Bring a voice. We got to talk about it. We got to heal. We got to connect. And now we're just starting a project with an organization out of Kansas City, Missouri, and we're going to feature the stories of those that living life with Down syndrome. The real stories, though, what's it like? Not necessarily like the high school prom picture where somebody with Down syndrome is at high school prom. It's like, what's it really like, and what have you learned from that journey of dealing with the struggles of Down syndrome? At the end of the day, with all the stuff that's going on, the number one reason that we keep pushing ahead with 7 billion ones, and that is the stories are just soaked with God. They're just soaked, overflowing with God's presence. We never tell anybody, like, this is how you need to write your story. But 9 times out of 10, guess who shines strong and bright in each story? God. I would not have got through this journey without our Father. And I love that, because people can read it. It's not a sermon. It's not some type of marketing. True, real, authentic. It connects. And, you know, with each and every story, and I'm looking here right now, and it's like I look out there and it's like, this room is just absolutely overflowing with heroes. Now, what I want to do now, I want to definitely shift this from me, and I want to give you just a little bit of backstory and a few stories. Because I love how these things kind of unfold, and we never really know the full story because that's just the way it goes. So we're going to talk about some stories. Now, I'll let them do the first slide. Okay. Here you have Becky and Olivia. Olivia's in the middle, and then you have Tika, and then she has the eye patch. Okay? You're like, well, what are those people up there for? This is how it all works. I call it the ripple effect. Okay? When you share a story, you never know how far that ripple's going to go, but it is going to ripple. Okay, Becky is the mom to Olivia, and she's a huge follower of 7 billion ones. And so she was following the stories, and she reached out to me. She said, I really want to share a story, but it's not my own. It's my daughter's. I don't know if she will share her story, but I want her to, so I'm going to work on her. She finally got Olivia to share her story, and Olivia's story is this. Going to Missouri State University in her early 20s, very athletic, you know, just on and on and on. And then all of a sudden, I've got a headache. The next thing she knows, she has a brain tumor. Early 20s. The picture she's holding is actually the surgery above the ear. But she's like, I'm going to take that big step. Most people don't even know I had this surgery. I'm going to share my story with the idea of even helping one person. Just one, that's fine. It helped many, many people. Isn't that a hero? Isn't that a hero? Okay, this is what I love. The ripple effect, and how God works mysteriously. I remember this Saturday, it's been a couple years ago. I'm all by myself at the gallery and studio, beautiful day, and I'm working away on accounting, my least favorite thing to do. The doorbell goes off in the gallery. My first thought is, oh boy, I hate to be bothered. But I go to the front of the gallery, in walks Tika. At that point, she did not have the patch on her eye. She had 2 kids under the age of 4, and she looked white as a ghost and scared. In our gallery, we had several pictures in there like we do in your hallways right now, and they had stories, and she's looking around, and she says, do you have any stories about anybody that's dealing with brain surgery? This is the first time I've been in your gallery. I just happened to be walking by. Do you have any stories about brain surgery? I'm looking around the room, and I'm like, oh, no. No. We've got all these great stories that are inspiring, but none about brain surgery. But then God said, yes, you do, Randy. And it hit me. just minutes before she came in, I shifted from my accounting duties to creating the next post that was going to go live on Tuesday. Creating the web page, putting the story on there. Guess whose story it was? Olivia's. Okay? And I said, oh my goodness, Tika, please sit down, read this story. It's not even live on the internet yet. She read the story and she wept. She said, that's the exact same tumor that I have in the same location. And I said, I bet you Olivia would love to be your friend. I connected them. They, to this very day, stay connected, including Olivia's mom, Becky. All of them are doing well. Now I'm going to talk about Amy's story. They gave me 3 months to live, and that was 23 years ago. Actually, it's been about 25 now, because that's a couple years ago. Early 20s, went to the doctor. The doctor said, in not very good terms, if there's anything you want to do in life, do it now, because you're not going to live for more than 90 days. The doctor needs to learn some bedside manners. At that very point, she was in her early 20s with 2 kids, and she's like, oh my gosh. But look at her now. She proved the odds wrong. That story went on to reach almost 100,000 people worldwide. I love what Amy said. What I would say to someone going through something similar, find your hope and hang on to it, whatever it is. Don't focus on whatever your struggle you have, but what is going to get you to the other side. You have to feed your spirit every day. It's not easy, but it gets easier every day. One of my greatest gifts was my experience with cancer. That worst, best year of my life. Learning to live and to truly accept and love myself was an opportunity born out of a terminal diagnosis. She's a hero. Now I want to go to Catalan. Amy is Catalan's hero. Catalan is homeless, although she came in a few weeks ago and she has a home. Praise God. I remember the day I photographed her. I was working on that homeless project I referred to. And at that particular day, I photographed roughly 17 homeless that day and got their stories all in one day. 4 p.m., this guy said, I'm done. Taking the trash out to the dumpster, walking back in, and I see scurrying down the street one of the homeless people I photographed earlier in the day, and he had Catalan on his arm, and they were on a mission. And I'm like, oh my goodness, they're coming to my door. They're on a mission to work with me, and I'm like, I'm tired. It was inconvenient. And so they came, and his name was Steve, and he said, oh, Catalan wants to share her story. And I'm like, okay. So I unlocked the door, let her in, talked to her a minute, and she said she's been homeless for a few years. And then she said, I'm also dealing with cancer. I have no hope. I don't want to go on. Homeless, cancer. I told her about the story of Amy. I said, here's Amy's story, and I showed it to her. Her life didn't instantly change, but I could tell she had seeds of hope where none existed before. So we did the photo shoot. It was very emotional. She shared her story. You'll need to read her story. It's like, wow. When it was all over, I actually was on to some other activities, and she beelined right to me. She looked me in the eyes, and she said, Randy, do you know what you did? I thought I was in trouble. That happens to me a lot. And I'm like, what do you mean? And she said, you showed me that I am special as one, that I matter. Most people look down upon me because I'm homeless. I hardly get the time of day. You gave me some dignity. A picture and a story. She said, I will never forget you. And I remember this till the day I leave this planet. And she looked at me and she said, Randy, please do not forget me. And so she rummages through her backpack with all of her life belongings. She's like, this is so special to me, and I want you to have it. And every time you see this, touch it, or anything, you think of me because I want you to remember me and the impact you had. It's just a little pendant. I like to carry it in my pocket. It keeps things in perspective. It's worth nothing, but to me, it's priceless. She's like, think of me. Think of me. She came in about 6 months ago. She looked terrible. I don't mean that negatively. She got married. She found her husband. He had hung himself. They finally had a house. Another thing in her life that's like, how do we deal with this? God gets us through. Literally just a couple weeks ago, she came back in. I did not recognize her. She'd put on weight. Her color was back, and something was there, and it's so powerful, and she smiled. She smiled. And she said, I'm doing better. I couldn't stay in that house anymore, but I got another house, and so she's got a place to live. But this is what I'll never forget, too, about this lady. She was homeless, dealing with cancer, lost her husband to suicide. And she said, and she saw that we were doing the portraits and stories on survivors of suicide. She was reading some of them. She's like, Randy, I have to share my story about my loss of suicide. And she said, the only reason I want to do it is if I can just even help one person so they can get through too. There's so much in this world that says humanity's awry, that this world is not doing so good. If you watch the headlines, you'll think that. I can tell you this, and this is a truth, that this world is filled with amazing people that love and care for others, full of compassion. Every single story I've shared, again, hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds. The motivation is not 15 seconds of fame. The motivation is this incredible journey I'm on with all the ups and downs and everything that's with it and the things I've learned. If I can help just one person, it's worth it to me. That speaks a lot about you. Now, let's go to Donnas' story. I'm not going to get through all these stories. Darn it. One of my favorite people in the world, talking about the homeless project. I remember the distinct day he walked in. The very first day I was photographing the homeless, and I thought, oh, goodness gracious sakes alive, because I used to be petrified of this guy. When he was walking down the street in Springfield, Missouri, if I was on that same sidewalk, I'd go to the other side, because I'm like, oh, this guy is going to cause trouble. And so he walked in that very first day, wanted to be part of the project, and I'm like, oh. I talked to him for 30 seconds, and guess what happened to me? I was wrong, and I fell in love. This is one of my favorite people in the world. In his story, I asked Donnas about love, and he said, love to me is like a ray of sunshine and a smile. If I can make someone smile that don't even know me, they will remember me the next time they see me. And that is the love that I see. But when we talk about the word love coming up, I didn't have it nowhere, and it's all back to the smile. He became homeless at the age of 12. His family life was so bad, that was the best option. Age of 12. Was homeless until roughly the age of 45 or something like that. He's got a home. When we did the exhibit of all of our homeless friends and their stories, I remember that night there was roughly 2,000 people that came. It was beautiful. Homeless intermixing with the elite of the community. It was awesome. One little girl named Izzy. Oh my gosh, what a hero she is. 8 years old. There's Izzy. She was so impacted by the stories on the homeless that she came in like a week or two later. Her mom said she wanted to give every single penny out of her life savings, $125, and give it to the homeless. They came in with all the different bags of goodies for homeless, and she wanted to deliver them. But she, like me, fell in love with Caveman, and she wrote this letter. Caveman, I love you. Donnas' street name is Caveman. Pretty much every single homeless person has a street name. And so she wrote him a special note. I remember that day that Caveman came in and got the letter. Caveman cried. He was so touched. Caveman is her hero. Izzy is Caveman. It goes back and forth. They're both heroes. She came into all the bags of goods. I happened to be going to a homeless camp that very day, and I said to Izzy and her mom, would you like to come to this homeless camp and deliver in person a few of these bags to people that need the goods? And they were like, awesome. So that brings up Biker D. His real name is Darren. We went to the camp. He's the very first person we saw. She gave a bag to him. He was totally taken. An 8-year-old person handing him a bag basically filled with love. We handed out all the bags. That was that. A few days after that, literally, the city came in, bulldozed the camp down. I literally saw Biker D's tent go to the ground. He lost everything except a little pack, and it looks like a little lunchbox. He lost everything else. A few days after that, in walks Biker D. He looked very sad. He said this, I lost everything except what I have here. These are my life prized possessions. He opened up the little, looks like a lunchbox, and it was filled with like trinkets, little necklaces and gemstones and just various things. He said, I'm going to leave this here with you. You call Izzy, have her come in. She can pick out anything she wants out of this because of the way that she impacted me through that kindness and that act of compassion. Heroes, stories. They change, they heal, they empower. By the way, just literally a couple weeks ago, Caveman, Donnas, came back into the gallery. There's two good-looking guys right there. And I love it because when he came in, he said, he didn't say, hey, can you give me $5 or, a pack of cigarettes or something like that. He never does. He came in, he just said, Randy, I just came in to tell you I love you. That's my hero. With all the mess that he is, he still shines through it all. Now, to end this, we're going to skip a story. And I'm going to go to the story of Tyler. Tyler is the young gentleman on the left. This is his mom and his wife and his baby. Photographed him last fall, actually September probably. And his mom was familiar with 7 billion ones, got him to be familiar with 7 billion ones. Everything's going great. He started having a few problems. Here he is, a college football player, a star, in the prime of his life. The doctor says it's not good. You have a very rare disease, a very rare form of cancer. He, at that point, was 20 years old. And in the midst of going through it, he's like, I have to share my story. I'm not comfortable. I don't look my best. I have to share my story. And he said to me, he said, if I can help even one person by sharing my story, it will be worth it. Was not convenient. He understands what it's all about. A couple weeks after we photographed Tyler, he left this world. Left of course, his mom and his wife and his baby. That's actually one of the very last pictures ever taken of him. I didn't know this until after it was all done. And his mom said that the day he died, he whispered these words to her. Where there's a will, there's a way. I want to make a difference. And love is the way. One of the last words. And he's still thinking about us. So in closing, as you reflect on my story, as you reflect on your story, say to yourself, no, this is God's story. And God's got this story here for a reason, and it can help people. So after this is all over, I literally hope I punched you in the heart, maybe even wrecked your life a little bit in a really good way. I hope that some of the things you've heard today has challenged you and maybe inspired you a little bit. And ultimately, I hope that you look at others and say, oh, goodness gracious sakes alive, what a miracle. This person, they're a miracle. I hope you look in the mirror and you say, I am dazzling. I hope you think about your life and that you matter, that your story counts, and that God wants to use it. He wants to use you. And that you are a hero to someone. So my challenge to you now is to go out and be a compassion warrior with me. Whatever that looks like, let's bring some light that will counteract these dark headlines. So if I live to be a glorious 100 years old, or if I call this my last day, it doesn't matter. I know that this ache in my heart's going to continue till that day. And my purpose is that I have to share stories. I have to share your stories, using it as God's voice. Because really, this world of 7.6 billion needs the stories of the ones.